Tens of inhabitants of Kambe subdivision in the Dongamatum division northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon now homeless and facing enormous difficulties after their homes and properties were razed by flames in that part of the country. We'll bring to you images of that fire incident and testimonies of what actually happened there in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinoxe Television. And Reporters Without Borders are now pressing for the liberation of former CRTV General Manager Amadou Vamuke, who has been in detention at the Kondingi Maximum Security Prison in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. The organization is demanding for his immediate release on grounds that he has been detained illegally for years today, and a group of political parties of the opposition are mounting pressure for the revision of the country's electoral code for free, fair and transparent and of course peaceful and democratic elections in the country. The group of 7 opposition political parties were speaking to the press today in Yaoundé. They have issued a release in which they are stating that they have come together to fight for a change as far as the electoral processes in Cameroon is concerned. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television, live from my headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bable Jonathan. A group of 7 opposition political parties in Cameroon come together to press for a revision of the country's electoral code. A joint release signed by representatives of the political parties states that they have decided to unite in an inclusive Republican framework with all the parties involved in the democratic process in order to establish a new or amended electoral code for the stability and prosperity of their country. They are the Union of Socialist Movements, United Socialist Democratic Party, Social Democratic Front, Cameroon Renaissance Movement, Cameroon Party for National Reconciliation, Progressive Movement, and the Cameroon Democratic Union CDU political party. And they are calling on all political parties, organizations, or personalities of the civil society to participate in what is qualified as the dynamism of working together. And the joint statement is signed by prominent political figures in the country like Professor Maurice Kamto, National President of the CRM political party, Honorable O.C. Joshua, First Vice President of the Social Democratic Front, Cabral Libi, National President of the CPNR political party, Patricia Tumaino Damjoya, Mayor of Fumban, and interim president of the CDU, Prince Ekoso, USDP President Kwemo Pierre, UMS President, and Ile Zipang of the Progressive Movement, a political party, and they are coming together to work for the revision of the country's electoral code for a peaceful, democratic, free and transparent elections in Cameroon. And the Popular Action Party, another party of the opposition, says it will not merge itself to old and new friends of President Paul Biya to demand for sectoral reforms. It is more concerned with the ceasefire or a ceasefire in the crisis-hit northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, a possible negotiation to end the crisis in the Anglophone regions, a change of the form of state with its institutions and system, and the PAP thinks the modification of the electoral code is irrelevant in a system qualified as a Jacobinist system with hyper-centralization of power at the presidency of the Republic, a system in which, according to the statement, the PAP elections must, according to the statement of the PAP, the elections must be organized in a war condition without votes. And the PAP of Denis Njang says Cameroon needs an independent electoral commission in a federal republic. To the party, it is not a struggle for unfair elections with a fair electoral code. That is the reaction of the Popular Action Party to the joint release by some 7 opposition political parties fighting for a change in the electoral system in the country for peaceful, democratic, fair and transparent elections. Now, on to something else. We will talk about the former general manager of the Cameroon Radio Television CRTV, Amadou Vamoke, who has been in detention for years today, and the organization Reporters Without Borders is now asking for the release of the journalist on grounds that he has been detained illegally in violation of the laws of the land. Innocent has more.
Reporters Without Borders threatened to hold the Cameroonian authorities responsible for what happens to Amadou Vamoke, the 71-year-old journalist, who according to them has been jailed arbitrarily for nearly 5 years over allegations he embezzled funds meant for the state-owned media CRTV while its general manager in 2005 till 2016, the year he was arrested. Reporters Without Borders in a letter say the journalist and former CRTV general manager, held for years in a completely illegal manner, is now in danger of dying because of his age and poor state of health. Arnaud Froger, the head of Reporters Without Borders Africa desk, stressed that keeping him in detention in these conditions cannot be justified on any grounds. They urge the Cameroonian authorities to free him before it is too late. Reporters Without Borders add Vamoke's trial is being conducted in a completely illegal manner, and the court has so far held a record of 64 hearings without getting any closer to reaching a verdict. They clearly spell out in the letter that no other Cameroonian journalist has ever been subjected to this kind of judicial treatment. On March 22, 2019, Reporters Without Borders addressed an open letter to the President of the Republic of Cameroon to use his prerogatives to obtain the release of Amadou Vamoke, who by then had been held arbitrarily for more than 2.5 years. On September 13, 2019, Reporters Without Borders called on the Cameroonian authorities to release and grant medical evacuation to the detained journalist Amadou Vamoke because his health is worsening dramatically, and 2 medical reports certify that he needs tests that cannot be conducted or carried out in Cameroon. On June 12, 2020, Reporters Without Borders called on the Cameroonian authority to accept the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention's opinion that the journalist Amadou Vamoke's provisional detention has no legal basis and that he should be released at once so that he can receive the necessary medical treatment for his illness.
At least 4 cars were damaged earlier today in front of the Ministry of Justice in Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé, by an individual who stormed the area and launched an attack on some of the vehicles that were parked in front of the ministry. Some of the vehicles were set ablaze, others destroyed by the individual who is yet to be identified. The purpose for his actions yet to be clearly and publicly established. He has been arrested and he's been questioned over this attack which he launched on the vehicles in front of the Ministry of Justice in the Republic of Cameroon. At least 4 cars were damaged by that individual who stormed the area earlier today in the nation's political capital. We'll be bringing to you greater details on this in our subsequent news editions. In a similar story, we now take you to Nkambe in the Donga-Mantum Division, northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, where fire is said to have come out of the bush to consume at least 10 houses, and several persons have been rendered homeless and deprived of their properties by that fire incident recorded in two villages, B and Bijeng, in Nkambe subdivision yesterday. For me, I'm Standard reports.
Johnson Tawe and his family are now homeless and do not know where they will go to from where they are seated. He and his children are among the close to 50 persons directly affected by a strange ravaging fire incident in Bijeng village of the Nkambe Central Subdivision, Donga-Mantum Division of the Northwest region of Cameroon. This is all we could rescue from my house. Everything got burnt. Mrs. Confidence Birake is a widow whose husband died 4 years ago, leaving her with 6 children. She has lost everything, from her 4-room house to food crops and her lone banana and coffee plantation. This lady went for a funeral in South Village, and when the incident started, we could not break into her house. Everything got burnt. She is a widow.
And then we say Monday.
No, na widow.
A total of 11 houses got completely burnt in Bijeng village alone, and victims, like other villagers, say the origin of the flames remain unknown.
When we see a fire, we struggle for quencher.
We do not know the origin of the flames.
For daytime, we all man.
In the neighboring B village, the flames on the same day consume at least 3 houses. The flames in B village were contained from spreading further thanks to the timely intervention of the B village youth, who were present thanks to the fact that the incident occurred on a B traditional market day. One of the affected persons in B village, Panjaba Emos, says no human life was lost. According to a local B youth leader, Tamjong Sidwan, the people of B village think that the flames originated from the burning of grass in a nearby farm.
Coming up, Immaculate Fogwe takes a look at the increase in prices of basic commodities on the markets, notably in the town of Douala, the economic capital of the country. Her report.
For the past weeks, the prices of major food items like tomatoes, mackerel fish and chicken continue to spike significantly across markets in the economic capital Douala. Roasted fish sellers lament over poor sales due to decrease in command. Many of them say the recent hike in price has scared away most of their customers. Traders at the New Dado market attribute the hike in price of chicken to scarcity. Chicks are very scarce in the market, reason why the prices of chicken have increased. What we used to sell for 2,500 francs is now sold for 3,300 francs. A lot of our customers say they are unable to afford for them. Tomato sellers, on their part, blame the coming of the rain. Sometimes tomatoes are cheap, but this time around they are expensive. Gardeners say the coming of the rain is affecting harvest. Customers are now forced to adjust their shopping list in order to ensure that their family have something to eat. While waiting for prices to drop, households continue to face the consequences.
Now we talk about the installation of several other commissioners in the littoral region of the Republic of Cameroon, most precisely for the Douala International Airport, the Seaport and Immigration Office in the town of Douala. These commissioners were installed into their functions by the regional delegate for national security of the littoral region, Police Commissioner Laurent Esogo.
The fight against illicit trafficking and corruption is going to be the new task ahead for the new commissioner of the Douala International Airport, says the delegate of national security for the littoral region, Raymond Isogo. The authorities must make sure the entire administration works hand in hand towards attaining the objectives of the government. The predecessor of Babangida Amadou, Police Commissioner Zakari Yaro Alaj, has been called as the Director of Security at the Douala International Airport, a position which he will have to devote and consecrate time and research in the fight against illicit trafficking at this airport, where he arrived in 2011, forging his way through hierarchy. One of the principal missions will be to enforce barrier measures in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. We must follow the procedures put in place by the government. Meantime, at the international seaport, the person assigned to head security detail at this naval space of more than 1,000 hectares will be Commissioner Eba Solo. The Douala International Seaport, which is an entry point and an exit point, will have to be thoroughly secured. At the immigration office, the Commissioner Mpo Mvondo Therese Epus Tago will have to revamp the sector by doing a thorough follow-up in the production and issuing of passports. I always work based on the recommendations of hierarchy, and I will always apply the security rules by the book, so I enforce security at our national borders. From the airport, then the seaport, and finally the immigration office, it will be a set of new faces that will be heading security detail following the decrees from the head of state.
Raymond Isogo, regional delegate for national security of the littoral region of the country, commissioners of different security departments and institutions in the country's economic capital, Douala. On to news out of the Republic of Cameroon, we take you to Cote d'Ivoire, where widespread celebrations have been going on after the International Criminal Court decided to uphold the acquittal of former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo and former youth leader Blé Goudé, and the celebration started in front of the ICC, where supporters of the two leaders converged for celebration, while in the country's capital, Abidjan, people took to the streets. Supporters of former President Laurent Gbagbo and youth leader Blé Goudé went on in mad celebrations, so to speak, after the appeal chambers of the ICC decided to reject the appeal filed by the prosecutor, thus upholding the liberation, the acquittal, of course, of President Laurent Gbagbo and his former youth leader, Charles Blé Goudé. Talking Point is up next. Thank you for staying with us in Talking Points. We are receiving a legal mind, member of the Cameroon Bar Association, Barrister Tamfo Richard. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Babila. Good afternoon. The pleasure is always mine.
The former general manager of the Cameroon Radio Television, CRTV, Amadou Vamuke, cries out from his cell demanding for justice, asking for justice in the case in which has sent him there. He has been there for several years, more than 5 years now. What do you think about that letter, that open letter written by Amadou Vamuke to the Minister of Justice, in which he indicates that his rights have been violated?
Well, it's a letter of distress, and for what the information I know is that he has been in detention for a very long period of time, And being in detention without you having been judged is really painful. So it just decries the slowness of our judicial system, where people can be awaiting trial for a very long period of time without a proper hearing. His case has suffered a lot of adjournment unnecessarily, and him making this open letter to the Minister of Justice is because he's in distress and feels that he's been held arbitrarily and illegally, and that is high time that maybe the head of the judiciary should look into his case, and if possible, may he be tried and convicted, so that at least when he's there, he should know exactly at what time he's to serve, which sentence he has to serve before coming out.
What are the different aspects of violations of the law, violations of human rights that you identify as a legal mind in that particular case?
Yes, for his case, for example, he's not given a fair trial. He's not given the opportunity to defend himself. We used to say in law that justice delayed is justice being denied. His case not being heard at this time, whereas he has been under detention for more than 4 years, is exaggerated. One, his right to liberty is being violated. We are living a pandemic period now where the state holding you in detention illegally like that exposes you to a lot of illness. It's easy for him to contract the COVID-19
and he indicates that some of the people who are in his cell have been tested positive for the coronavirus.
So those are the dangers he's facing, and you see they are violating his human right, because had it been he had been judged already and maybe found not guilty, because at this point in time he's still presumed innocent because he has not been tried. So he believes that him being in prison and being held illegally exposes him to some illness. So he thinks that it's better that he's been able to maybe granted bail, so that if the case has to proceed to court, let him be on bail and then continue to court. So that's the more reason I think he's making that distress call to the Minister of Justice.
He thinks that is an attack on his personality. It's an attack against him.
Yes, obviously. When you are in prison, physically your liberty is restrained, your integrity, your moral standard is being infringed upon. So if he thinks that he's being held in detention arbitrarily has a lot of damages on his physical integrity, that is a right that is being violated. So he's under his right to ask or request that if the state is holding him in detention, because it is the state which is holding him in detention, there should be a trial of his case, and the duration is too long as prescribed by the law. No law warrants such custody for a person for more than 4 years.
I was going to ask you if there is any legal provision that warrants the detention or pre-trial detention to extend to this length of time, more than 4 years, 5 years, 10 years for some who are in detention.
Remand in custody is 6 months, renewable for another 6 months if it was a felony, or another months if it was a crime. So under normal circumstances, when you do your calculation, at least you have 18 months that you can be under remand in custody, that is awaiting trial. You have not yet been sentenced. So for him being there for more than 4 years now is exaggerated, is above the limit. It's not provided, it's not guided by any text of law. And you agree with me that we have some situations in our prison whereby somebody may be standing trial for an offense which is, for example, punishable with 6 months, and he's in prison for more than 2 years. You see that at the end of the day, even if he's found guilty, they will give him a sentence of 6 months, whereas he has been in prison for 2 years. So which becomes an abuse on him by the state for detaining him for so a long time without him having justice. So to me, I just feel that the case of Amuke, they were arrested in a context of embezzlement of public funds, and maybe it's a political way to punish them. But what we should decry is that no matter the offense that he might have committed, there should be at least a trial. He should be given his right to a fair hearing should be respected. And if he's found guilty, let himself be stand. And if he's innocent, he has no reason to be in prison. So holding him in detention in this way, to me, has no legal backing.
There are many other persons who are being detained in the same conditions, including detainees of the Anglophone crisis, including detainees of some political issues, notably militants of Stand Up for Cameroon, the civil society platform, 4 of them who are still being detained to date. What explains this decision to keep people in pre-trial detention for so long at a time when there are even calls for the prisons to be decongested, the prisons that are highly congested to be decongested, even as with regards to the coronavirus pandemic?
Yeah, it's just a bad management of our administration or our justice system, because had it been we had a proper management of our prisons, you will see that our prisons today are overpopulated because there are so many people in prison who are there for nothing. You keep people for so long, you don't judge them. You even arrest people for frivolous offenses. You know that just with respect to the ongoing Anglophone crisis, just the fact that somebody can just suspect or tells or goes and reports you that you are involved, you will be arrested, and that's all. You go to your farm to carry on the activity, you face the military, they arrest you and they send to prison. So we have a lot of frivolous arrests and charges. That is what is causing the overpopulation of our prisons. People go out for public manifestations, you arrest them and they are in prison for more than 6 months. Okay, when you keep them for that length of time, others who have even committed crime will come and add to them, and that is why you see we are having images, very deplorable images, whereby some prisoners, because of the length of time they have been in prison, they fall sick, and even still while on their illness, you see they are in the hospital in chains and all like, because the detention conditions in the prisons are not that way favorable. Because a prison which was built, for example, for to harbor like 1 person or 1,000 inmates happens to have 3,000, 4,000. You see, it becomes very tedious and very uninhabitable. So we have to rethink about the humane face of our justice system. Our prisons have a very inhumane face, where we think that when they send you to prison, it's for you to just go and die. No, the prison should be a place where you rethink to see how you can enter back into the society. But here we have the contrary. When you go to prison, you come out, either you come out dead or you come out on a sick bed, as we see other people
and a case in point which falls within the framework of what you're describing as far as poor detention conditions are concerned is that of journalist Thomas Awa, who has been in detention for years today in very horrific conditions.
Yes,
chained on his
Thomas
sick
Awa,
bed.
I happen to know him as a journalist, and within the ongoing conflict, he was arrested to be one of those involved either in the Anglophone crisis, as the term it, secessionists and all the like. So you see, yes, he was arrested, he was judged and sentenced. He's serving a sentence now, and it happens that he's sick. But I think even when you are a prisoner, you still have some right. You still have the right to be given proper health treatment, you should take care, you should have proper health care. So if he's sick, we should not be seeing images of somebody who is sick or who is in detention and is sick. He's being on a sick bed and he's still having chains. I think even at that stage, they can treat you without necessarily putting you chains. So that's why I say we need a humane face in treating our prisoners. Our prisoners are treated as last persons of the earth, where you should not have any consideration for them. No, that's not how it is. Prisoners have the right to proper health care. They have the right to eat. We have seen instances where others have benefited from maybe presidential clemency. It can reach a time where the head of state discovers that maybe because of your health situation, you need proper attention elsewhere. He can grant you that measure for you.
And the question rising within the Cameroonian society and even abroad is, why is it that other detainees who were accused or were found guilty of having embezzled millions and hundreds of billions of francs CFA of state money are granted the possibility to go out of the country for treatment, granted some privileges, but not other people who are in the same health conditions and even more critical, like the case of Thomas Awa?
Yes, all these things is maybe a network. I myself, I don't understand why should others benefit for such facilities and others do not. You know the place where Anglophone detainees occupy within the ongoing crisis. I don't see the head of state maybe granting Awad Thomas maybe medical attention as you do for others. Others, he will tell you that no, maybe their crime was less severe. For these ones, as you always see him in his tune, very hard. So I don't see him granting any presidential clemency for Awad Thomas, whereas which is not proper. I think
because the question is Thomas Sawa not a Cameroonian like the others?
We should be equal before the laws, and if the law has to apply on X, it should also apply on Y. So I think he is the only one to decide. The Constitution gives him the possibility to decide. So it's only by using his good conscience that he can now decide to either rate or grant those two instances, whether he grants them treatment or presidential clemency. It's at the discretion of it's at his own discretion. So there's no other measure that you can do to force him to do that. What we should only decry is that if others have benefited, why not should others also not benefit? So it is a president in his largesse to be able to know what to do and at what time to do it.
Does the law permit that somebody should be detained to death if the person has not been sentenced to death?
That's why I say there's no law that warrants somebody to be detained without a judgment. You can be detained for a particular period, and during that period, you have the right to a fair trial. You should be tried, and if you are found guilty, you can be sentenced to maybe life imprisonment or to several years of imprisonment, but not that you'll be detained, and even when you are under very hard conditions like being very sick, and that you should be held maybe in chains. No, there is no law on that. That's why I say we should have a humane face into some of those conditions, because having somebody that you have already sentenced or who is awaiting trial, he falls sick and is almost dying, and still yet you think that you still continue to maintain him arbitrarily in prisons, whereas you could maybe accelerate his proceedings, make sure that the case is being heard as fast as possible, and if he's innocent, letting him not die in prison. Because when you look at some of those inmates who are sick, you have no hopes of them, even if at the end of the day they have been found not guilty, to live, because their health condition has deteriorated.
And some of the persons who are in detention today, the direct result of what you legal minds have qualified as illegal arrest and arrest of persons which do not agree with the laws of the land. And recently in the Cambe, the divisional officer of the locality called some indigents to a sensitization meeting, and during that meeting he began to call out some persons who are said to be selling fuel in the area, and equally parents of some two young women who are said to be married to an individual who is identified as a general of the separatist movement. And he called them out, and at the end of the day he asked the security officers to take them away.
We have several cases like that. You need to just visit the prisons and you hear the stories of Anglophone detainees who are there with respect to the Anglophone crisis. Those cases are very, a majority of the prisons are filled with those type of cases where just for you being maybe the sister or the brother to one of maybe a separatist fighter automatically tags you as either in support or an accomplice to his activities. No, whereas criminal responsibility is individual. If my father is a separatist, it does not mean that I am one. So I think everybody should be able to work and apply the criminal procedure code that governs us, all of us. If everybody does his job at his own stage, we'll have lesser people in prison, because there's a possibility after investigation that if charges are not being found against you, let you be granted bail and continue the process. But a majority of the instances, just these mere suspicions, they will arrest you and they send to prison. How will the prison not be overpopulated? How will diseases not affect the inmates? So that's a whole sort of things that we are decrying, that the criminal procedure code that we fought for it to come and observe the respect of the rule of law, observe human rights protections, is not being applied. Judges take a lot of time to render judgments, whereas the code gives them prescriptions on the time limit for judgments to be out. Police or agents, they carry frivolous investigations and send people to prison. So everybody should be able to do his job at his own place.
Right. Can somebody pay for a crime committed by another? In that video, which I was talking about earlier, we see the divisional officer telling the mother of one of the young girls married to the separatist fighter that you're going to pay for the crime committed by your daughter.
No, that's an abuse. There's no provision on that. Criminal responsibility is individual. So if the daughter or whosoever commits his act is individually responsible, the mother cannot pay for it. So that's just an abuse of functions or authority of that divisional officer.
Is it within the competence of a divisional officer to arrest people?
In cases where maybe there are threats to public security, but it should follow a communication. Not just that you just come and you start pointing fingers or you raise frivolous accusations and you start arresting people. No, I think it has a whole chain of communication, and when it is being properly done, people can be arrested, interrogated, and actually see if they are threats to the security, and if they are not, they should be released.
Barrister Tamfuricha, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Babila.
Ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television with this report compiled by Smanjikan Gabriel, in which he presents statistics of the qualifications for the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations hosted by Cameroon.
Comoros and the Gambia were the surprise package at the end of the qualifiers Tuesday. The East African nation Comoros and West African country Gambia had historic qualifications to the football jamboree next year. It will be the first time both will be appearing at the Continental Showpiece event. Apart from them, the other nations are household names, though some are appearing at the competition for a second time, like Ethiopia and the Shigoti Lions of Mauritania. Records were also created at the end of the qualifiers. Algeria ended the qualifiers as the country with most goals scored in 6 matches played. The Desert Foxes scored 19 goals, giving us an average of 3 goals per match.
Still going. Oh, that's a brilliant finish in the end from Baghdad Buneja.
Another North African outfit, Morocco, ended the qualifiers as the team with the best defense, conceding just 1 goal in as many as 6 matches played. Meanwhile, Tunisia collected most points during the qualifiers. In 6 matches played, the Carthage Eagles won 5, drew 1, totaling 16 points. 8 nations finished the qualifiers without conceding a defeat, amongst them Algeria, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Egypt, Senegal, Morocco, Nigeria and Tunisia, while countries like Eswatini, Lesotho, Sao Tome and Principe, Chad and Togo finished the qualifiers without a victory. If most African football powerhouses will be present in Cameroon, others that most expected but won't be present include the Bafana Bafana of South Africa of the newly elected CAF's president, Dr. Motsepe Patrice, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Togo, and Angola. Among the 23 countries already qualified, 9 of them are former champions of the competition. The 24th team to pick its qualification ticket for Cameroon 2021 will be known during the next FIFA break, as Sierra Leone will take on Benin. Their encounter was interrupted after 5 players of the Squirrels of Benin tested positive to the coronavirus.
From the corner,
And what a start that is for the Elephants.
The African Nations Cup will take place on June 25th, 2021, and the competition will run from January 9 to February 6, 2022. Thank you for staying with us. Equinoxe is up next.